Good morning. Okay, so I just started this video and had to restart because, in the middle of it, people started calling my phone that I don't even know. Never seen the number before. So they were trying to interrupt what I got because I got some good information this morning. It's called the Stalking and Mind Control um, system. And what I do is when I do my research, I research. I read article after article after article until I find good information. I don't just here's an article, let me go read it on. No, 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 no. Uh-uh. I've been dealing with this since 2011, and I've been through all kinds of algorithms as far as gang stalking. I've been tortured with all kinds of direct energy weapons, kidnapping attempts on me, murder attempts on me. Been shot there, AR-15 grazed me, busted my stuff open like that, then sew it back together. So anyway, okay, so I'm talking about the gang stalking mind control system, and this is by, and I don't have permission to use this dude's name, and he probably wouldn't mind, but he used to work for the DOD, but anyway, and so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start out with a Bible verse and get into the information. Is in this I'm coming in from Isaiah 58 and starting with 6, and I'll just stop and tell you what verse I stop at. But people think fasting is just denying yourself food, and it's not. And I'm gonna prove it to you. Is this not the fast that I have chosen, to loose the bonds of the wickedness, to undo the heavy burdens, to let the oppressed go free, that you break every yoke? Is it not to share your bread with the hungry, and that you bring to your house the poor who are cast out? When you see the naked, that you cover him, and not hide yourself from your own flesh. Then your light shall break forth like the morning, your healing shall spring forth speedily, and your righteousness shall go before you. The glory of the Lord shall be your rear guard. Then you shall call, and the Lord will answer. You shall cry, and he will say, Here I am. If you take away the yoke from your midst, the pointing of the finger and speaking wickedness, that extend your soul to the hungry and satisfy the afflicted soul, then your light shall satisfy the afflicted soul. Then your light shall dawn in darkness, and your darkness shall be as noonday. And that I stopped at 10. So Isaiah 58, 6 through 10. So you're helping the poor, covering the poor, feeding the poor is also a way of fasting. There's proof right there. Anyway, here we go. And this is good information. And I had to, man, I searched for days for this. Cell phones are just second into tertiary, tertiary, tertiary. I can't speak some words. I'm sorry. Forms of communications for the swarmers and stalkers to direct the paradigm of the street theater for deception and manipulation against the target. It's also a means of control device for the secondary forms of record. You are not being attacked with cell phones. Aiming cell phones at you is just an attempt to force you and other target individuals into false correlations. Neither are you being attacked by towers, satellites, and mobile platforms. They are just the relay devices. Cell phone towers don't operate within the same dime grid and don't use military channels. They can, however, be specifically outfitted to do so. Remember, this stream of photons contains a hidden carrier frequency embedded within the stream of comprised and fabricated and falsified data. Although towers are still used, most of the targeting sequences for microwave exchange of this technology is the bidirectional neural network from satellite and mobile platforms. Those are the three platforms they are using. Look and you will see the more pedestrian forms of communication by organized stalkers, including hand signals. The hive mind teams are communicating with the surveillance teams by synthetic telepathy. The surveillance team then relay the information to the swarmers who are plugged into the paradigm. It is the swarmers who are directing their harassment and attacks, while the stalkers, informants, etc. are also trained to conceal their voice communications. They use mostly ordinary pedestrian forms of communication such as cell phones, radios, etc. to relay your position and information to others. This is because real-time communication is critical for the surveillance, not to mention mind control technology to work effectively. So agent to swarmer communication in real time is a vital component of their verification process. Real-time communication gives the surveillance team a tactical advantage over you, the targeted individual. So your enemy is not the organized stalkers, but the entire surveillance team dedicated to you every 8 hours with some degree of overlap. The organized stalkers are not dedicated to the targeted individual per se, but to all targeted individuals who move through their area of operation in which they live, work, and play, allowing for greater degrees of indirection and plausible deniability. And that's why when you go from place to place to place to place, no matter where you go, you're getting stalked. It's happening because you're moving into another group of swarmers' territory, and they take control over you. Your enemy are 3 different teams. Surveillance teams which operate in 8-hour shifts against you. Organized stalking is not a job or action or even an activity for the criminals. It's a lifestyle. It's what stalking thugs live, eat, and breathe all day long, 24/7. Organized stalking is a lifestyle for those animals. For the hive mind teams and surveillance teams, it is a job. Or the teams, hold on. Okay. And I'm going to read this one more time. This is something to think about before you go moving all over the country. The organized stalkers are not dedicated to the targeted individual per se, but to all targeted individuals who move through their area of operation in which they live, work, and play, allowing for greater degrees of indirection and plausible deniability. The surveillance teams are mobile, not the hive mind teams and organized stalkers, which are mostly always tied to geographical areas and regions. It's just a method to keep you constantly responding, constantly playing the game through creation of never-ending situational conversational scenarios, which are also used for verification markers. Think of it as a game of chess. It simplifies what is happening to you if you compare it to a game of chess. The organized stalkers are the pawns. The surveillance teams are the rooks, knights, bishops. The hive mind team members are the queen, clones, firewalls, etc. And the remote neural monitor supercomputers, the king. All of it is based on the mathematical model known as the hyper-game theory. Game theory ends. Eventually you run out of resources, chess pieces to play the game. Hyper-game theory never ends. That is the mathematical model the hive mind teams, surveillance teams, etc. are using against you. The RNM supercomputer is programmed by these hyper-game theory, non-cooperative game theory algorithms. With hyper-game theory, the chess pieces don't die. They just go back to their starting point, and the game continues ad infinitum because they're always in a higher optimum. Hold on. They're always in a higher optimal, then there's always a next move to be made. The game is endless, can be activated at will by the attackers, and only ends up upon the death or incapacitation of one of the players to the deadly game. Since the players in the deadly game of deception and manipulation are you and a conscious supercomputer, guess who will die or become incapacitated first? Not the supercomputer. In a game of chess with a viable opponent, it's not enough to predict and influence your opponent's next move to win the game. You must be able to predict and influence your opponent's next 10 moves. This is why verification is so crucial to their technology. The only way they can determine whether they have reached their objective is each time is through feedback. That's what verification is, feedback. Verification is simply the remote neural monitor system and hive mind teams running you through a behavioral or verbal routine each day to probe you for a set of specific responses, as they must verify those responses are consistent, which they can only accomplish through feedback. Only then can responses be integrated back into the RMN data. That's what verification is all about, feedback. This is why the remote neural link between victims' brains and supercomputer is called the information and injection feedback loop. If you learn to counter the response-based remote neural monitor system, the handler operator clone will manually inject and vary the process to achieve verification by different means. There are only 2 ways to defeat the hyper game theory. Refuse to play the game to begin with, ignore them, and place your opponents into a counter position where they can no longer better their own position against you. Nash equilibrium. Remember, organized stalking is also used for different reasons, including to keep you from defeating their technology. And let's see. And also, here's some emphasis added. Well, I'm going to save that for different, because that's all the subject. Well, I'm going to go ahead and basically the CIA, DIA, remote neural monitor hive teams map your brainwave signature and then remotely tie you to a supercomputer for life which downloads your information back into a database and monitors and manipulates all electromagnetic activity of your brain 24/7 for life until the day of your death. The transcranial brain stimulation is also used by the military with other brain-to-computer interfaces, such as those used by pilots with the new F-35 stealth craft. They specifically target organs of control, such as heart, by modulation of the phase, frequency, amplitude of the stream of electromagnetic low frequency waves. They are targeting your cerebral cortex with effectually hijacking the central nervous system by default manipulating the autonomous system of the human anatomy. This is achieved by interfering with electrical potentials that keep the chambers of the heart regulated, producing fibrillation and supertachycardia. They slow kill, soft kill the trauma-based mind control victim by amplification of brain waves or vice versa by the weapon system software of mind control technologies, known as Satan, or silent assassination through amplified neurons. Another purpose of the Satan system is behavior modification to death, useful in silent, plausible, deniable, mass murder, eugenics, effectively training the mind control victims into every known detrimental behavior to shorten life. Remember, this is a weapon system. It's called thanatology, which means the study of death, both physical, psychological, and social death. The Satan system includes virtual interfaces to mind viruses, torture programs, and other mind hacking tools. The user interface for Satan system is virtual, controlled by neural chip in the body or the gear of the hive mind team members, which are almost cognitive researchers, psychologists, psychiatrists, behavior, and requires no keyboard, type, mouse movement, voice recognition, or touching the screen, but is controlled by way of an eye gaze tracker. Think of virtual environment headset, but the hive mind members don't need the headset because of the neural chip. The neural chip is called the electronic brain-to-brain interface. It listens to the audio cortex voice commands and responds as the hive mind team member thinks out loud. The hive mind team member interfaces with a conscious supercomputer, which locks onto the emotional state of the victim. This is achieved by way of a computer multiplexer, which routes the signal, containing a hidden carrier frequency specifically tuned to a brainwave signature of the victim via stream of electromagnetic low frequency waves to a tower, satellite, mobile platform, which relays the signal to the digital receiver, similar to how cell phone technology works. So the digital receiver is tracked and pinpointed in real time, just like a cell phone, as this mind control technology depends on timing and location, just like a cell phone. However, the CIA DIA mind control technology, the digital receiver, is not a phone. It is a human brain. The brain of the victim has been digitalized by nanotechnology in his body. The victim is forced to ingest nanotechnology in his food, drink, which then migrates to the bloodstream, to the brain, and adheres to the neurotransmitters of the victim's brains. That nanotechnology then speaks to and decodes the neurotransmitters of the victim's brain through a process called direct energy flashing. They basically illumine the brain of the victim with continual bidirectional stream of photons and then read the return training signal. Deep stuff, and I hope that makes sense. It makes a lot of sense because you sit here and you're like, man, how can I go here and get hit? How can I go here and get hit? How come this shielding ain't working? How come this ain't working? Well, man, I'm not saying, once they have your brainwave mapped out and they have your algorithms in the computer for your brainwave, they no longer need to hit you with lasers, nothing like that. They will burn you remotely without even being nowhere near you. And it's just hard to explain, and I've been racking my brain on how to explain it, and that's a good way to explain it. We're not dealing with, it's like this dude I was talking to yesterday, we're not dealing with artificial intelligence. We're dealing with artificial life. They have created something that's becoming way smarter than them, and we're dealing with artificial life. So anyway, God bless y'all. Y'all have a good day, and I will be back with one of the best videos I've ever did Monday. And this is some deep stuff, and I promise you, you're going to want to spread this everywhere because you've been wondering how this works. Everybody's got all this misinformation out there saying it goes this way, this way, this way. No, this is some deep stuff, and you're going to want to listen to it. God bless y'all. Y'all have a great weekend.